So welcome back, everyone. Welcome to Pick Up the Mic. We have another episode, and this time with a friend of mine, Morgan. Jeffrey's here with us today as well. So Jeffrey, do you want to say hello?
Hi everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. We're back with our third season, and we're bringing new guests, some old guests, and a lot of more and new content. So you're in for a treat today as well.
Yeah, so today we have Morgan on, who's going to talk to us about everything environmental. Morgan, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Just want to say it's a pleasure to be on Pick Up the Mic. I've been listening to you guys over the past year, and it's quite inspiring. As someone who's a Brunel alumni, it's nice to hear some voices from Brunel out there in the podcasting world. So a bit about myself. I'm a Londoner, born and raised in a non-religious Jewish household. I like to travel as much as I can and meet new people from different cultures. A bit difficult to do over lockdown, but that's what the internet's for, I guess. To relax, I like to get creative, especially with like marker pens. I'm a big fan of marker pen art. To sort of get me in my zone, I like to do some yoga and lots of exercise, such as jogging or going to the gym. And sometimes there's nothing I love more than just listening to a good podcast, like from many different genres, including Pick Up the Mic. So my connection to Brunel would be that I studied politics and history at the university from 2014 to 2018. It was a sandwich course, so I did a year in industry, which actually was working for Brunel University Graduate School, so very familiar environment. For my sort of career ambitions, initially I wanted to work in politics, maybe possibly being a member of parliament. I wasn't really sure at that age, to be honest. I'm impressed by people who know exactly what they want to do as a career as soon as they start university. But this sort of interest in politics eventually evolved into a wider interest of working in the public sector. At the end of my studies and final year, I successfully got an internship working for the Environment Agency, which was really quite fulfilling, to be honest. Immediately after I finished university, I traveled for a brief period of time before I started my internship. During this internship, I worked for the Sustainable Places team, which is the Environment Agency's environmental urban planning regulation team. So we'd look at planning applications and see how they interact with environmental issues on site. So are there endangered species on site? Is the development site within 8 meters of a main river? Would it be a contaminating development that would poison everyone's drinking water? These are the sort of issues we look at. It's really interesting stuff. Now, I think something to point out was this internship only lasted for 3 months. And as hard as I tried, I couldn't find a permanent job with them at the end of those 3 months. So much to my dismay, I then worked in a retail shop for a month or so, but I really didn't enjoy that. It was quite a toxic environment. So now I went and worked for a supermarket for 4 months until, thank goodness, I landed a job with the Environment Agency and got back in. And that was quite a fulfilling reward and quite a mental journey, I must say, and a real post-uni experience. I've heard a lot of stories from people about what happened to them or what they did immediately after university, and they range from very wild to very difficult to very interesting to all over the place. But in short, that's me and sort of my my sort of story.
Nice. It was a very gripping story as well. Like when you were saying you'd gone through that period, you didn't have a job, I was like, where's it going to go? And then you got that job. So like, yeah, nice. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's good for people out there to know that like people do go through, like, obviously at that point when you'd sort of you'd lost the job and you hadn't found something else, you were probably thinking like, is this going to be it? Am I going to get a job in the environmental agency to do with something that you want to do with politics or whatever? And then it just means like sometimes working just means doing a job you don't want to do for a little while you apply, while you wait. And there's no, like, it could, for you, it lasted not that long, luckily, or it was quite a while if it's not doing something you like. But for other people, it can last, it can last a year. It could be a year of not doing what you want.
Yeah.
Weird. That's a good
also just unemployment as well. Like I know some people who I work with who are quite successful now, but just immediately after university, they were out of a job for 3 months and they're just struggling to find it. Takes quite a blow to the self-esteem. That luckily that didn't happen to me, but it happens to some. And I guess it's important as well to remember that sometimes a career doesn't just go up or down, it can go sideways as well. Sometimes you need to take a side step, or circumstances just lead that way. It doesn't necessarily mean things are going bad. It's just you're in progress, you're in waiting.
And it's like you said, you did yoga, and I've just started yoga as well.
Oh, nice, fellow yogi.
I love it. Yeah, fellow yogi. And like, honestly, like yoga it's not about the destination. It's about just living it all. So like, you got a period of whatever it is, and it's just about being in that period, doing the best you can and being yourself, just breathing basically. So like, to use that analogy, but yeah, also, yeah, I thought it's a fellow yoga guy. I love it, especially the class.
It's great.
There's just girls, so it's nice to know there's other guys out there doing it.
The classes are pretty good. I mainly do it online on YouTube because of originally because of all the lockdown stuff. But I've been trying classes recently. I've got to admit, I realized how much I've been doing wrong at home just looking at a YouTube video. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, my downward dog is awful. Honestly,
just face plant immediately straight into the floor.
And they're also just like, you actually have to lift your back into the air, and I'm just like, do I? I just like flopping randomly. But yeah, when you go to the actual classes, like they actually have to lift me up. They're just like, it's like this, and I'm just like,
Yeah, you get shown who's boss.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like yoga with a job, sometimes you're not in the right place, but you get there. You take your time, you breathe. Anyway,
yeah, mindfulness, being present.
So thanks for that, Morgan. And it's great to learn a bit more about you and I guess what you've been doing during this lockdown period. Now we come to, I guess, our first official question. And I know you briefly touched on it before, but essentially we just want to know, what was it like looking for jobs after you graduated? Was it an easy process? You spoke about the different areas that you had to work in before you got the job that you actually wanted. So, yeah, I guess, what was it like, essentially?
So, to anyone who's been in final year undergraduate studies or possibly even postgrad, when you're like slaving away, burning the midnight oil, like it's really intense. And then like you need to apply for jobs, you need to apply for a graduate scheme. Oh wait, but you've also got all these deadlines, you've got exams. It's a real pressure cooker. Luckily, a friend from the course, I kept getting denied from a lot of jobs I applied for. Let's say that first. Luckily, a friend from my course told me about a internship scheme that Environment Agency does with Brunel. Just Brunel actually as well. And I applied for that. And it was a fairly last minute application. And luckily I got it. And so I was kind of relieved towards the end of university to have that lined up. So having that there meant I could go travel and just relax and be in peace. And I had it for 3 months. It was a really good time. I really felt like I was sort of working in something that related to my course, which was politics and history. It was the Environment Agency working for the government in environmental regulation, who wouldn't find that as an interesting job to find yourself in. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't get a job with them after the 3-month internship ended. So I then went to work in retail and fashion. And I found that quite disheartening, to be honest, because I had this expectation that once you finish your studies and get that dream job, it's just up and up and up and up. You know, now that I think about it, that's quite a unrealistic expectation, because in this moment, I felt disheartened because I felt like I was going down career-wise. I was working in a like high street fashion shoe shop that was a really toxic environment. And I just felt very disheartened. I was struggling a lot with anxiety. And towards the end of it, the depression started to come in. And it was quite a struggle. I think what sort of helped me in those moments was exercise, really. Like regular exercise, so going for jogs, going to the gym, meditating as well. Meditation's really good, because on top of that difficult environment, I had to apply for more jobs. I was like, I need to get back into my dream career. I need to get back to the environment agency or somewhere similar. So just going home and slamming on a computer doing that, I was an anxious mess, mate, absolute mess. So still wasn't working out after a month, couldn't find a job, and I was hating where I was working. I was really anxious. So I quit that and started a job working for a supermarket. And to be fair, you know, the hours were a bit difficult at points, but I actually found that job quite fulfilling. It was a lot more social. And they treat their staff really well there, really well. So I was quite happy about that. I think a lesson I can learn from that is if you're in a job you don't like, there's no reason you have to stay there. There are other jobs out there. You can quit and find them. Just make sure you've got some savings to back you up. And eventually, after about 4 months roughly of working in the supermarket, I successfully got an interview with the environment agency in the sustainable places team, and I got it. And I remember the exact moment I got that, I literally ran down my stairs after putting down the phone, screamed, and just flew onto the sofa, like proper slam dunked myself onto the sofa. And I think I might have damaged it a little, to be honest. Hopefully my stepdad isn't watching this this podcast, but yeah, I honestly felt so relieved in that moment and felt like my career was back on track. I think in hindsight, if I'm ever in that situation again, I would try and look at it as a sidestep rather than a step down, because a sidestep means you're just taking a break out of something you're doing, whilst a step down just not good for your self-esteem to think that way. You've got to try and be as hopeful and positive as you can, but you know, sometimes you just need some time to accept your situation. So essentially, yeah, that was my experience immediately post-university.
Yeah, thank you for that, Morgan. And yeah, I think you touched on a lot of very important notes there. And yeah, first off, I think like you said, you know, sometimes we just need to understand that things aren't necessarily, you know, I guess you're going in the wrong direction, or you're not necessarily, you know, going where you're not where you're supposed to be or you want to be. Like you said, it's just seeing that as like a sidestep. So, you know, you might not necessarily be where you want to be immediately or get where you want to be immediately, but you might just be, you know, a bit of a, you know, you're on that path, but you just took a bit of a step out rather than going backwards. And yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I know literally I was speaking to someone about it, not necessarily about university, but the idea of like failure and stuff and trying new things and stuff. And the person was saying that, you know, they find it interesting that young people nowadays, even he said like he's not that old, but he was saying like when he was growing up as well, that, you know, there was like always this passion of, you know, I don't necessarily need to come out of university and know like, or even like when I'm doing my GCSEs, know that I want to be a mechanical engineer working with BMW or Lexus or something like that. He was just like,
yeah, it's awfully specific.
Yeah, awfully
yeah.
Like, I know even like me, I probably didn't know, like I said it before on previous episodes, like I didn't know what I wanted to do at university until probably like the course I'm doing now was not what I thought at year 9 I was going to do. I originally wanted to do something about like bioengineering and biosciences. So then when I found out like later, like looking back now and I'm doing environmental sciences, I'm like, yes, they're kind of similar, but I now know that I've not really a big fan of the lab. And like you were saying, it's just being okay with like, just not necessarily like rushing in and not necessarily getting like, doing the things that we thought we wanted to do, and just waiting for good opportunities to pop up. And like you said, it's great to hear that you were able to work with sustainable places. It's really great that you were able to get that job. And I guess it's key because, in our previous episode, we talked about it with Fika, but they were talking about how it doesn't matter essentially. We talked about the idea of like fate, and it doesn't matter necessarily if, this year, you got the job that you were looking for, the job that you were looking for rejected you. Because you never know, you might necessarily, not get that job, you work somewhere else. And then next thing you know, someone who works there might be like, oh, you want to work here? Well, actually, my best friend's husband works there, and he's actually got like a really senior role, so he can give you an opportunity there. Or it might even be a case of you learn that, and that was the other thing the person was saying to me, was that as young people, we're more encouraged to do, I guess, opportunities that, I guess, like, not everyone, I guess everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but they were saying that, nowadays you're more happy to do something that you'll love doing, whether even if it means you don't get any money from it or little money from it, then, working in an organization where, you get paid loads of money, but actually you really don't like what you're doing, or you're feeling like you're forced to do it.
Yeah. I know a lot of people, especially over lockdown as well, had sort of career change anxiety. Where they're like, man, this sucks. I hate my job. This is what I'm spending the majority of my life doing. And I remember hearing another podcast about, it was a TED talk about a man working in the government in Washington, D.C. His salary wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't bad, but he's looking at like his friends. This is an anxious way of thinking as well. Comparing himself to his friends. So his friend who was a lawyer earning over $100,000, like looking at his Instagram, like him and his wife getting married in Thailand. It's like, damn, man, I wish I had that job because look, he's got all of that. Everything looks so great. He then continues like in his TED talk to say that, he reconnects with his friend after a while and finds out that his friend's absolutely miserable. He's depressed. He's unhappy. He hates his job. The hours are long. There's doing some morally questionable stuff. All those photos on Instagram are just showing what you want people to see. It's not an accurate reflection of life. And he decided to change his career to become a teacher. So from going from like job that's paying over $100,000 to about the national average, about 40,000, and so much more fulfilled with his life. Do something that's fulfilling, not something that will get you money. I mean, a little bit of money, but if it's gonna destroy your well-being, is it really worth it?
Definitely. Especially when people try and earn money to have a good standard of life. But if the job's destroying your life, then there's no point. Some people can deal with the stress, but it's just not for everyone. And like, it depends on your personality, what your values are, what you want. There's a load of different priorities. But yeah, that's a good point.
Well, sometimes there's toxic work environments as well. Some companies are really like horrible to work for. That's why looking at places like Glassdoor are quite helpful for getting a feel of that sort of environment, or just messaging people who work there on LinkedIn, like, hey, you don't know me, I don't know you, but I would love some information from you right now. What's it like working here? And most people would actually be happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, also sorry to hear that you went through a bad period with your job and your life, and it happens. And when you're reflecting on it now, you're actually using like a CBT technique where it's not like you're like changing your perspective of then, like, but in hindsight, when you say like it's just a stepping stone, it's just a whatever it is, but we do, like, our minds create these bad ideas about our lives and about whatever, and it's not like change your life, change your thoughts. It's about changing your thoughts to change your life. So you've got to change what's inside first. You can't rely always on the outside world to fix you. You've sometimes just got to fix yourself where you are, and then you can go and do what you want.
Yeah, your actions. So your mindset feeds into your actions, and your actions feed into your behaviors, and your behaviors feed into your mindset. There's a really good CBT book I could recommend maybe after this call. But how that's relevant to the post-university experience is there's this idea with our generation, the millennials or the Gen Zs, that need to burn the midnight oil, need to put the hours in, need to get in the grind, get a job, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a lot of pressure to have. So when you're 18 and you're doing your A-levels, there's a lot of pressure to force you to make a decision to go to university and what you want to study at university, rather than offering things like apprenticeships, which can be a lot more valuable than some of the university degrees that I've seen. But there's this pressure to push you to do that. And when it comes to your final year of university, you are in like an anxious pressure cooker. So you got all your studies and you got this push for a job. And then this is where I think anxiety comes in, because your mindset is, oh my God, what am I going to do afterwards? So therefore your actions are going to be not giving yourself time to relax. You're going to be like applying for jobs in the evening, studying during the day, getting very little sleep. And then your behavior, well, that's where your behavior is going to come in, where you're just going to be an absolute nervous wreck. The anxiety will get worse. You'll get depressed. If you don't, every time you get turned down from a job, you think, what's the point? And that becomes your mindset, really. It's this sort of high pressure, burn the midnight oil, put in hours, overwork yourself environment that's just not helping a lot of young people or a lot of young adults today. And if people can, apply for jobs, study in final year, but still give themselves some time to relax in the evenings, like do something that takes your mind off that absolute grind, that idea of putting in the hours and overworking yourself, to not do that and just relax and do that when you can. Perfect. You've got to give yourself some time and fall out of that trap.
Time management is so important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I learned that as well, especially with the job I'm doing at the moment, where when I come back.
What are you doing at the moment?
I'm a HCA in a mental health hospital. So it's like 12.5-hour days, but then on my days off, I've just got to give myself a break. I've got to properly rest, because if I don't, then it's just complete. Your mind's just overworking the entire time, just from day to day to day. You've got to literally just hit there. That's why I started doing yoga, start doing different things. Like you said, meditation is really helpful, but also just going for walks, doing exercise, meeting people, seeing your friends, doing whatever, but also just spending some time literally doing nothing as well is just so important.
Yeah, alone time, me time is so important. Even extroverts, introverts, even extroverts need to have some alone time. You can't get energy and relaxed around people all the time. People are the worst, mate.
And I describe myself as extroverted, and I do need some time to just literally doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's music, maybe it's TV, maybe it's whatever. Just put it on. Don't think about anything. Don't think about people. Don't think about whatever. Just listen to the music. And actually, I really like what your brother sent me once. Actually, Morgan, is handpan music.
Handpan. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Hard pan, maybe, or handpan.
Handpan. It's it looks like a spaceship. It's like a.
Ah, yeah. Okay. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, that's quite relaxing stuff. That's good to chill out to in your alone time. Yeah. Good choice. My brother's got good taste, it seems.
He does. I was already listening to it as well at the time, but then he sent me this band, and now I just really like them. So every time I want to chill, I just play their music.
No, lovely. That sounds like a good vibe. Do you use any scented oils or fragrance diffusers?
Candles, yeah.
Yeah, candles works. Yeah. Again, something else to help you relax in the evenings, just get you in the zone and throw off all that day of hard work and overthinking.
Mm-hmm. I like your mood light as well in the background. I can see it.
Yeah, that one is penetratingly strong. I think they should use it on aircraft. That one's not meant for bedrooms. I get a strange feeling.
Going on to our next question as well.
Sure.
Just looking at time and everything. We were wondering where graduates can go to look for jobs if they've had no luck. Sometimes if they've had luck and they've got stuff through and they don't really feel like it, where can they go for like opportunities?
So it has been a while, because bear in mind I graduated in, oh my goodness, 2017, 4 years ago. I'm not going to count 1 year because lockdown was a year stolen from us all. So if I remember correctly, the Brunel Professional Development Center, if I've pronounced that right, I remembered it right, they're really good. They've got a jobs board there, and they're also very useful for just soft skills when it comes to interviews. Like, let's look at your CV. You need to change this. Practice interviews as well. Like, I wouldn't have got my Brunel University year in industry. I literally did a practice interview with the Brunel Development Center like an hour before I had this interview with the Brunel Graduate School. So without that I wouldn't have got that far. Also, it's where you can find like really useful job advertisements. So for example, the Environment Agency has an internship scheme that they run only exclusively with Brunel students. Last time I checked, so you'll probably find some stuff there. In terms of like other areas to look, Target Jobs, that was one website I was using. There's so many out there online that can help find you graduate schemes or just normal entry-level jobs. If you're like interested in politics or history, W4MP or Work for MPs, as it's expanded to, that's for like jobs in the public sector, not just politics. I mean, it's called Work for MPs, but there's charity jobs on there, working for MPs, working for political parties. If that's something that interests you, they're quite useful. I think also what's really good is just using networks as well. Networks is so important. And I know everyone hates networking. It seems so shallow, I guess. Well, to me, it did originally, but it is such a useful tool, because if there's one thing we all know in life, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. And having like a family member who works for a company can help you get in, or a friend of a friend of a friend who you can talk to about, hey, what's the interview like? What sort of questions do they ask? That is such juicy, helpful knowledge. Therefore, having those networks, having those connections, priceless. That's about it for me there.
Yeah. And they're all really good, really good ways of doing it. But I actually wanted to put my own way of how I found my job.
Oh, yeah, go on.
And I went on Google Maps. So people, you can use Google Maps. I typed in mental health hospitals. I had like a list of a few come up. I was doing my dissertation at the time, so I was like, okay, I'll apply to a few of them. So I went onto their websites, just sent emails to like, I think it was like 3 or 4 of them. And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to do my work and not think about it until afterwards. But anyway, one of them got back like straight away. The place that I work for now was just like, yeah, we like your CV. Do you want to come do an interview like next week or whatever? And then next week I literally had the job. So you can,
nice.
Like anything, literally like you're really good. Like they are the solid routes to go.
So you approached them, like they weren't advertising. You just you sent them an email saying, hey, have you got any vacancies? Here's my CV. Oh, basically. Nice. Yeah, I've heard that's quite good as well, actually, just taking the initiative.
Yeah. And some places got back and said at the moment, no, but like in checking a couple months and then there might be something. So like if you just like, yeah, they might not be recruiting, and that's okay, but you can literally like, they might be saying like, oh, we're just about to open this job role, like, do you want to apply? And then it's actually a great way of getting it, because you're literally the first, you could be the first one there, or maybe it's just like something that they weren't really advertising, but they wanted someone. So like, yeah, like don't always go by advertising or whatever. Like it's almost like going by word of mouth really, but you just sort of like send out the feelers yourself.
Sometimes you can't wait for things to come to you. It might even be better to search for them yourself.
Or Google Maps.
Yeah, I'll Google Maps them.
Going on to, I guess, our next question, Morgan.
Sure.
We know, obviously, you touched on it before, and I'm sure even some of our listeners can probably relate to this. But obviously, 2020 brought to everyone an interesting year. But more importantly, it brought around this whole idea of working from home. So essentially, we just want to ask you, how did it feel to work from home during the pandemic? I know I was on placement, and that was already an interesting experience for an organization that mainly does in-person stuff, to sort of like do that quick transition to working from home. But I guess we just want to know, how did you find it, Morgan?
Working from home during the pandemic, to be honest, at first I found quite fun, maybe for a month. I could wake up later, which was fantastic. I saved lots of money from not commuting to the office. It also meant I didn't have to put up with just absolutely ram-packed trains and the smell of body odor, which possibly might have been my own, maybe. And it's nice to like make myself a warm cooked lunch instead of a cold, crusty sandwich meal deal from Tesco. You know, it was such a mood booster. Things are, as time went on, I noticed that just a lack of physical activity can really affect, well, my anxiety, and I feel like a lot about everyone's really. The pandemic sort of weighed on my mind, as well as other issues, just seeing the news get worse and worse, but also just personal issues at the time where I was living. It just really became a little bit of a struggle. Like I started overthinking, and it just wasn't helping. I think it sort of goes back to our physiology and psychology. We're still like hunter-gatherer cave people to an extent. We need to move. We're not supposed to be sat down for most of our days. Like physically, it's not good for us because we put on weight, our metabolism slow down, but mentally as well, I think it's got an effect there. You know, commuting to and from work, as horrible as it was, at least it gives you some time to like prepare your mind in the morning, listen to a podcast, listen to some music, or if you can download your TV shows onto Netflix before you get on the tube, then that's also helpful. You know, while it's a stress, it is a way for your mind to get ready. And then at the end of the day, it's a way for you to sort of debrief yourself, really. If you had a long day at work, again, just try and unwind. If you literally wake up, have your cereal, then go straight to work without leaving your room, without going outside for fresh air, that is gonna, I think, just somehow add up physically and mentally for you in a bad way. So, for example, now I always try and do exercise in the mornings before work, or if I'm just wrecked, I just go for a walk, get some fresh air or something. So, I think looking back at like how this kind of relates to a student as well, because working from home is the same as like what a student does, really. You're sitting in a library or sitting in your room, working from a laptop, and maybe not getting as much movement as you should. You know, looking back at it now, I never thought about how the lack of movement was affecting my mental health when I was studying at Brunel, but it just seems so obvious. You know, I struggled with a lot of anxiety in my final year, especially. Anyone who's been through their final year undergrad or is doing a master's degree, which is a real nutcracker, they all know that it's a real strain on your mental health. And, you know, if I had a time machine to go back to my final year, I would arrange things that I would start the day with just getting outdoors, doing some exercise or just going through a walk in nature. Like one thing we've realized over lockdown is spending time in nature is so good for your mental health. It releases so many feel good, happy chemicals in your brain. And on top of that, if you're doing exercise as well, you've got some endorphins, and it really helps with your motivation, it helps with your concentration, it helps with your cognitive ability. Get out there and do some movement, because what do students do? We just sit in the library for like 8 hours straight, munching snacks and Subway, especially from Brunel. There's other things you could do, like yoga is quite good to start in the mornings, stretches, meditation. Even if your movement's a bit impaired, you could try other stuff like being a bit creative in the mornings, maybe doing some drawing or meditation. That can really help. So that's the sort of advice I'd have for anyone working from home or anyone just being a student right now, really. Just wake up in the morning and get outside, even if it's blistering cold. Just go for a quick walk. Or if you can't go outside and go for a quick walk, spend an extra hour just reading a book or drawing or meditating, whatever works for you. That's all for me.
Oh, thank you very much.
Actually, it reminds me just very quickly of I've got a friend, Maria, she's been on it before. I'm pretty sure this was the advice she gave is that in the morning, 15 minutes is all you need. Break it down into 3. 5 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of yoga, and then like 5 minutes of, reading or like drawing or doing whatever. That's just 15 minutes of the day. And in that time, you've done something creative, you've calmed your mind, and you've done something like a physical stretch. And that's like, if you just start your day every day like that, your day is going to be so much better because you're going into it creative, like calm, well stretched. I don't do it, so don't look to me as like the example of how it works. But it's literally what you've just said as well. So it's clearly a good thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Like movement, creativity. What was the other thing you said? Reading, but intellectual stimulation. Great way to start the day rather than literally just getting out of bed, chowing down some breakfast, just hopping straight on the computer. It's not good.
Yeah, get some other things, because otherwise your life just becomes going to work, doing work, coming back from work. Like, put other things in your life. And that's what you're saying with me, because now a lot of people just wake up, roll out of bed, put on a shirt, sort of, still wearing their pajama bottoms or whatever, and then they're in front of the computer. They've got their morning meeting. That's the first thing they do when they wake up. They don't like have some water. They don't look out the window. They don't do whatever. It's literally just like, all right, quick morning meeting. And then sometimes when the morning meeting's over, they just roll back into bed again and sleep for another hour. I actually know people that do that. I'm not going to mention names, but
that must be a difficult existence, I must say. But I guess also getting your eyes off the screen as well. There's blue light from everything we look at these days. Like, I'm talking to you guys whilst looking at my laptop after spending an entire day on my work laptop looking at a screen. I've got my phone, which I also a screen. Oh, I want to watch some Netflix later. Oh, that's also a screen. Like finding activities that don't involve looking at a screen is really good, because blue light really affects your sleep. And, think about it. That is, your action is looking at too many screens. The blue light therefore affects your behavior, because you're going to be sleepy the next day. You're going to be in a bad mood, and then that's going to affect your mindset. So that's like the sort of triangle of how these 3 things feed into each other. You need to change your actions if you want your behavior to improve and to improve your mindset. That's one of the few things, just finding activities that don't involve screens for the evenings.
Your sort of triangle thing reminds me of something like that. I think Buddha said it or something. So don't quote me on this, because it's like, maybe it's like an Einstein quote where everyone just Einstein said it. But it was just like it's like your thoughts change your actions. It's like you were saying, your thoughts change and then you do things, and then your actions change your like your habits, and then your habits create your personality, and then your personality creates your life. So it all starts from the smallest little thing, and if you can stop it at the thoughts and then the actions, and then you're a different person.
Yeah, exactly. They feed into each other. Yeah, precisely.
Morgan, how did you know that you wanted to work at the environmental agency?
If I'm honest, I did not. I started university just knowing I was interested in politics and history and had no bloody clue what job it landed me in. Like, the idea of being a politician was just because that's politics and history. There you go, or historian. In my final year at university, it sort of came to me really. I was really desperate for any job I could get. I came across the Environment Agency by pure chance at a jobs fair and a course mate's suggestion. I'll be honest, environmentalism wasn't the top of my concerns during my first 2 years of university, to be honest. I somehow felt that I could trust those in government to eventually do what was right for our planet. However, after seeing people like Trump get elected, and when he's in office, selecting an oil tycoon to become the head of the USA's Environmental Protection Agency, I was not only like hysterically laughing, but also enraged. Like, how could you have a situation like that? It's like electing Satan as the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. It just doesn't work. So seeing this hypocrisy happen so easy in the USA, and then I thought, surely this can't happen in the UK. But then, what do you know? Along came Brexit in 2016. And my concerns really reached a boiling point because there are implications on environmental laws there that we get from being part of the EU. And if we're going to leave that, I was really concerned what's going to happen to the nature outside my door or in my neighborhood that actually makes me feel at peace and relaxed when I'm anxious or depressed. So from that point on, I think was my sandwich year at university. So like technically my third year, but not my final year. From that point on, I started religiously using my food waste bin and checking whether products could be recycled or if I could buy secondhand clothing instead of buying new clothing, then yeah, even better. I mean, so why would I want to work for the government, I guess? Or I always sort of had a passion for politics, but I got to admit, I felt so disheartened by Brexit and the rise of Trump. I started to see the appeal of doing honest work for government in the civil service instead of the elected positions that politicians go for. Like, one thing I noticed about politicians as well is that all opportunists as well, or at least the ones that the media loves to catch their eyes on. There might be like a natural disaster or a terrorist attack. They'll go to the hospital and shake hands with people and ask how they're doing, which is nice. But then whilst they're shaking hands with someone in the hospital, they'll turn around, look at the cameraman behind them to pose for a photo. You know, that's just not cool in my opinion. That's just opportunism, using other people's pain just to promote your own position. It's the civil service. It's like public servants that I think really are the people who are doing honest work in government, or at least most sections of the government. So the Environment Agency really kind of offered me an opportunity to do honest work as part of a meaningful cause. In my current role, I check whether planning applications risk damaging a river or risk poisoning our drinking water. It really feels like I'm doing something meaningful with my life in this sort of work. And whilst the pay isn't up to match, say, with the private sector, it feels so much more fulfilling than some of the other work I've done in my life. And it is such a great company, organization, arm's length body, you would say, to work for. But they give you so many benefits to working there, such as flexible working hours, like great paternity and maternity leave, lots of holiday time as well. It really is a great place to work, and it's been rated, I think, on Stonewall, who do like top 100 employers ratings, as one of the highest out there. So it is essentially that's how I fell in with the Environment Agency.
Decent. Yeah, I was going to ask you actually. So obviously you're talking about you're the one doing the procedures, doing the laws that are created to protect the environment, and you're the one, and it's very fulfilling work to be able to do that, to go out there, to make sure that something's not going to affect the environment in a certain way, and that everything's done the right way to protect what's around us. Like you were saying, it's so important. We found out over lockdown how important nature is. Like if it gets destroyed, then that's like everyone's mental health down the bin, like instantly.
Yeah.
So you're doing really, really good work that affects multiple different. It just affects everyone basically, not even just multiple. It just affects everything. But I was going to ask if you would consider in the future, because you said you're interested in politics, is going into policy making, so that making the policies or having a say in the policies that changes what people do on the ground level. It creates new laws, it creates new regulations. Is that something that you would consider?
To be honest, somewhat, yeah. It's sort of a trajectory I'm on at the moment, because if you think about how cities we have at the moment, how are they going to adapt to a world in the grips of climate change, to growing populations, to decaying infrastructure? It's a really interesting subject to get into, urban planning. Like what makes a city a happy place to live in? Access to nature, bike lanes, making good use of the space. So yeah, moving into sort of policy making, but in maybe policy isn't the right word for it, but working in urban planning, I think it is something that would really interest me. One thing we all learned over lockdown is we just discovered our local areas so much more because we couldn't do anything else. So it's interesting. Take a look at your local area and ask yourself what makes it a happy place and what makes it an unhappy place. Is there a sense of place? Are there places for communal gathering, socializing? Is it somewhere someone can stand still and then wait for a friend on a bench? It's a really interesting area to get into, urban planning. And anyone who's at university studying politics and history, you can easily do like a conversion course or a master's degree for it. I'd highly recommend it.
I actually did when I was at Brunel. The Will Self's course on.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
And that was literally like the way that the built environment affects our minds, like our psychology, psychogeography. It's like the way that, like the Shard looking like it's from Lord of the Rings. It's like Mordor's secret base or whatever. Like that could affect people's psychology, like the way that society's structured. Like there's a good way of doing it and there's a not so good way of doing it. And I think like incorporating nature into it, incorporating like green spaces, places that communities can get together and do things, like having a pagoda. Is it called a pagoda? In like an area where people can do dance classes, they can do yoga, they could do salsa, whatever. I mean, obviously, like in the UK, the weather hopefully will improve, so like people can enjoy the outside more. But it's so important to have a good outside for people. And yeah, like you said,
exactly.
And
go on. Sorry.
We're not just saying over lockdown, that just became very apparent.
Yeah, exactly. I think even before lockdown, because London's got quite a reputation as being like a lonely city, because even though there's so many people living in a fairly dense, compact space, we are just always in a rush to get somewhere, and we don't have a lot of time just to talk to strangers or our neighbors. I think a part of that is there's a lot of residential accommodation all rammed in to one place, and there's no communal space. So, things that you'd look in urban planning or urban design would be looking at, say, a new apartment block. How can we put communal spaces in with green areas, with a pergola, as you say? It's fascinating, really interesting stuff, and it's so relevant with the growing population and ongoing issues like climate change.
I realized that actually when I went to I think I went in 2018 or 2017. I went to Spain in the village my mum actually grew up in.
Yeah,
it's very, very, very rural in the middle of Spain. It's like I think it's like a wine growing region now. But anyway, it's just basically the culture there is set up that once your job's done, that's it. You sort of, everyone goes to these communal areas. There's like a fountain in the middle. There's like it's like bars or pubs. They're not like pubs because they're all open. You get like tapas there. You get short little little beers that you sort of sip on. Everyone's communicating with each other, like the entire square's there, and then the children are in the middle, all playing around the fountain, and then the adults are like at the back, like having, and it's just a very communal area. And even when I was walking around, like you were saying, I felt I was walking so much slower than I do in London. Like I was walking around, I was just enjoying my time. There was no rush. There was no to be. I was just like walking around it's actually quite a developed place now. So it's quite it's got a high street. It's got like shops and stuff. And just like even just walking around those, you just go so much slower, and you just sort of see the people more. Whereas in London, it's so busy. There's so many people. It's very unpersonal. Or impersonal, whatever the word is, but yeah,
exactly. There's no sense of community, and in some places, neighborhoods or areas is probably better than others. But then if you're thinking about, say, I don't know, maybe near me, like Haringman, Green Lanes, they could do some better placemaking, like what you're describing there in your mum's hometown is like placemaking, that square where people can relax, go to a restaurant, a bar, children can play by fountains. Like maybe look at Brunel University, for example, the quads area. That's like a sort of a good feel for placemaking, because in a way it's enclosed by all those buildings, including the lecture center and the graduate school. You've got the actual square in the middle that's got the steps you can sit on, just sit there with your mates and pretend you're not having an anxious breakdown from all the studying you're doing. But, that sense of place, you can stop and relax then, and the events can go on, and creates a sense of community. See why? Sorry, I am digressing so much, but I am quite passionate about this subject.